there were people walking the streets with like flashlights and guns.
Welcome to the Barbershop Show. I'm your host, Matt Horner, and I'm with my buddy, Ruben. How's it going, Ruben?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, back on again. And then, of course, we have the bouncer of the Barbershop, Walker. How's it going?
As always, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So happy to be here. I'm excited.
Had a lot of rain this weekend. Of course, we had that big hurricane come in.
Mm-hmm.
And my place has this beautiful coastal field, and we had 6 inches of rain or so. And me and my wife and kids, that coastal field became a rushing little creek, and we tubed it. We had our own lazy river. And
it didn't look very lazy, though.
No, it was fun, and we moved real fast, and I was thinking, man, it's crazy how weather turns on a dime, and it made me started thinking, what should we talk about? And I thought, man, weather's crazy, and people have lived through all types of weather scenarios, and it reminded me that Ruben lived through a pretty good Katrina, the famous Katrina.
Yeah,
hurricane.
2005. I was
2005.
there. Although I was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, so I wasn't in New Orleans. You know, everybody thinks New Orleans when they think of Hurricane Katrina.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
We think of that big dome where everybody was. And
right? Yeah.
How big's Hattiesburg?
Population-wise, I don't know, 100,000 maybe?
Yeah, so small city.
Yeah, they got the university over there and a couple of colleges, so it's a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. So, how much rain came?
Lots of rain.
Lots of rain.
Not enough to flood Hattiesburg, but there was storm damage there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, did they say leave? It's time to go and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even as far as Hattiesburg, they were still like, yeah, you should probably move north.
So now that you lived through something like that, if you're ever in a scenario again where you're like on the coast and they're saying, hey, we're going to have a severe hurricane coming, you should leave, will you pack up and leave now?
Not all the time, no.
Not all the time.
You can't listen to them because they're gonna take that approach where like, well, we're gonna use the safest method, so we're just gonna tell everybody to leave. That way, if it's bad enough, then they don't have to look at us. Yeah, we're covered. Yeah. Covered. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, like that Hurricane Michael. What was it? A Category 2 or 3, and then it dropped down to a tropical depression real quick. So I mean, that's nothing. That we have hurricanes down south in Louisiana all the time.
But Michael killed like a dozen people.
Okay. I mean, you know, it happens. I mean, there's always going to be...
people weren't that safe.
Well, there's always going to be old people that are dying. I mean, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but it's just going to happen. You know, you can't attribute those to, like, maybe the deaths that happened in Katrina. That was, like, massive flooding. You know, the levees broke down there in New Orleans. They say that it was because of poor engineering, but New Orleans is in it's in a toilet bowl, really. There's places you can go in New Orleans and you can actually look up and see ships going across the Gulf. So.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
So, especially New Orleans, I mean, if they say you should get out, you should get out.
Yeah, but I mean, hurricanes are so common down there that they pass out hurricane tracking maps every hurricane season. So when I was living in Louisiana, it was just like a regular thing, you know, like, oh, it's going to rain, a hurricane's coming. Mm-hmm. You know, we knew Katrina was going to be bad, right? I'm not saying that we were just blowing it off, but you know, we were still like, let's, you know, put together the, you know, hurricane parties, which happens all the time. And then it was really rough, and people were like, holy cow, this is really bad, you know. I mean, I was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and we lost power and water for days. And that was, you know, 2.5, 3 hours from the coast.
A few years ago, we had a major flood here in Cisco, and I was on the volunteer fire department. They sent us out to go get people on the North Shore because they couldn't get off. And, of course, nobody had power over there, and we were bringing water to people. And there's these, I remember I'm on this pontoon boat, and there's these classic old countrymen sitting on their lake house that looks pretty bad. And we're saying, hey, you know, you come on the boat with us, we'll take you to get, you know, good food and unlimited clean water. And so they go, well, just give us some bottled water. So we were like low on bottled water. So we gave them like, you know, 6 bottles of 20-ounce bottles of water. And like, well, can you come back and get some more water later? And like we were the Uber service of
like, hey, just get on the boat
of safety. The Uber service of I'm saying the place is flooding. You're not going to have power for a little while. You should probably just get on the boat. And as a first responder, I'm sitting there thinking, The frustration you get when you think you're told to leave, you don't leave, and now we're having to get you.
We're having to spend resources,
to get you.
Yeah.
I just kind of think of it. But then Katrina happened, remember, and then another hurricane come by right after that and hit Houston area. Remember that? What was that? I forget the name of that one.
I can't think of the name of it because it didn't hit us.
But because Katrina whatever just happened in New Orleans and all that area, everybody in Houston was like, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge. So they hit up I-35 because they were all afraid that, another bad thing. And then I remember all those people on I-35 getting stuck for days on the interstate because everybody just left.
Yeah, and so I think on that one there was no fatalities from the hurricane, but people actually died from heat exhaustion
in the cars.
In the cars.
And so my wife works at TxDOT in I-35, and she was having to send crews down there, and they were having to drive on the on the grassy shoulders with water and just handing water out. And of course, the churches that were nearby that could get to the areas of congestion.
That's just crazy.
But people died leaving Houston for that one. I thought that was kind of funny.
That's crazy.
But, man, with natural disasters, all crazy type fun things happen. But it's hard to make that decision, because you don't want to leave because looters. You got looters, number one, and they all like to come get your stuff, and I don't want them to get my BB gun or anything.
And there's no place like home.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to ride out a storm, hey, I'd rather be home than anywhere else. I don't want to be in a hotel or spending money.
Church gymnasium.
Or run up to the my parents' house for the couple of days. If I think, hey, I think we can ride this out. Yeah, you want to ride it out.
You want to ride it out.
But then there's always that little flip where it got worse, and then you're.
With hurricane warnings, my family, we like to just stand out on the porch in the wide open areas and try to physically see them before we do anything. It doesn't matter that we might get a stick or a pine cone up against the head or something like that. You shared a story about wind blowing stuff, and what happened?
So the place that I was staying at in Hattiesburg was a condo with the fiance at the time that I was living with. The roof ended up getting ripped off the place, and it dumped water in it and destroyed everything in there. But before that happened, things were getting real sketch, So we were like, we got to skedoodle. And I had a friend that had a brick house. He said, come on over. Got some other friends over here. So we mosey on over there. We're over there. Winds are gusting. Winds are blowing, but when the gust hits, you can feel it. It's a gust of wind, and it'll reach speeds of 120. Michael got up to 155 miles an hour. That's fast. That'll pick up boards,
That's almost as fast as Matt's fastball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
I got a better kickball, though.
Oh, really? Yeah. Remind me never to play kickball with you. So there's one girl, friend of a friend of ours, and she's over there. She's just fascinated by the wind speed outside and everything blowing around. She's like, I just want to go feel it. And we're like, don't go outside. Just stay inside. And she's like, no, it'll be fine. And really, it wasn't like a tornado just blowing stuff around, but you could see the winds blowing, Yeah. Come on. She opens the sliding door. She takes one step outside, looks to the left, and a pine cone smashes her right in the face. Right as soon as she steps outside, she falls back inside crying and sobbing, and we're all like, told you so.
Death by pine cone.
That is crazy.
The worst part about that, probably for us, was the heat. Mm-hmm. So after the hurricane comes through, then you have this intense, wet heat. In Louisiana, it was so miserable. No electricity, so you can't turn the AC on, and no water to cool yourself off with. So no cold water, no AC, hot, sticky, nasty. Trees are down everywhere. Literally the street that we were on, we couldn't drive off of because there were so many trees that were tore out of the ground.
And then all the crazies that happen afterwards.
Yeah, at night, since there's no power, no electricity, no lights on, it's completely dark, we had to go get this one girl that I'm talking about that got hit in the face. We had to go get her from her apartment, and there were people walking the streets with, flashlights and guns. So, and there were a couple of shops that had windows busted out of them. One of them was funny. We drove by it. Well, I guess it wasn't funny, but the window was busted out of this place, and you could see two lines coming out the front door all the way out to the street and down the street. what they had done is they had tied a chain to the safe in the back of the store to, I guess, a truck and just drug the thing. Just drug it out the store and down the street.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's what happens whenever a storm. If you're wondering what can I do to prepare for myself for a catastrophic event, you're gonna need water. You're gonna need your go bag, stuff, for fire, first aid kit, emergency bars that will sustain you, food that's lightweight that you can carry around because you'll have to move, because that's what we did. We had to move, and you don't want to be packing loads and loads of stuff.
You don't want cans and cans of SpaghettiOs and weenies.
I kind of wish that you could somehow make that tack bread that they had in Lord of the Rings, that bread where it would last them days, but they could just eat a little bit of it. That would have been great. Water's the hardest thing because it's heavy.
That would be great.
That would be fabulous if we could just mix that up. Water's heavy, and you need a lot of it because you're super thirsty. And then you're going to need weapons. You're going to need something to protect yourself with, because just society goes down to its base level. I mean, people just get stupid.
That's one thing that blew my mind about particularly Katrina is 2 days without the comforts that we're all used to in the 21st century, and people start resorting to just that survival instinct.
I mean, we're purging. It turns into the movie.
It blew my mind how fast people revert.
Yeah. People come in the barbershop and they don't have good speed on their phone. They get disgruntled. They're like, man, AT&T sucks today. I'm like, I know, bro. Calm down. Just take deep breaths. I just got one bar.
I had a friend who was actually leaving New Orleans. He was like, it's getting crazy down here. Got in his car, was getting out of New Orleans, stopped at a stoplight. He looked to his right, and there was a guy, and he was walking up to him with an AK-47. He had a gun that he was carrying. He pointed his gun at the guy. The guy turned away, and he just skedaddled out of there. But I heard there's tons of stories about New Orleans where guys were in bateaux, those little aluminum boats, and they were just riding around with AK-47s, just going down and just taking whatever. I mean, it was chaos down there. If you talk to some of the police officers,
I remember some of the footage, because there was this one famous footage that you can find probably pretty easy, and it's some looters in an area. You hear a window break, they grab a box of stuff, and they've declared martial law. This cop goes, "Hey, stop!" and he raises his gun, and it was just and then they showed it on the news a lot. It kind of showed that clip over and over again. It was a black officer raising his looked like a pump shotgun up. I was just like, "Whoa, that is crazy!" Just to see this type of that decay
right here
of our society. Yeah.
people,
and it happened pretty quick. So, hey, do you have now? Are you prepared for a natural disaster?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my food storage, but I'm not mobile like you. I got my water, I got the filters, I got the MREs and things like that.
Yep.
But I live out in the country. I think it is a little different. Like if you live down a dirt road or somewhere like that, you don't really have the hordes of people maybe that you're worried about.
I bought 40 MREs 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I ate through all of them because I was slowly testing them because people were like, they're horrible, they're disgusting. I'm going to tell you firsthand right now, MREs are delicious.
Especially if you're hungry.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah.
I was sitting. I did this little military base camp thing whenever I was a teenager. It wasn't obviously military training, but it was just like a
wannabe.
Yeah, a wannabe. It was pretty intense, I thought. But we ate MREs during that week. And at one point where you get the dessert in there, and mine was a Skittles bag, and I'm sitting there, you got nothing better to do while you're sitting on the ground eating this stuff. So I'm reading the back, and it's like, enter for your chance to win this contest. Must have entry in by December 1998. And I was like,
yeah.
Like how old are these things?
Yeah. Skittles, they don't go bad.
Oh, they were delicious.
Yeah. Probably Starburst too, because they're double wrapped.
Mm-hmm. Not a big Starburst fan. I'd rather have the Skittles.
I take a Starburst, man.
I'll trade you my Starburst.
See, and that stuff right there is going to be gold. That's going to be. We're going to have to barter during these times.
He's right. If that's really what happens, if you have sugar.
Oh yeah.
Flour.
Can you think back when sugar was the top-notch thing? The man who has sugar has all the power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if things did get that
salt.
bad. Salt, sugar, spices.
Mm-hmm.
Something that spices up regular mundane life.
One of my favorite, I can't believe they ended the show early, but I think there was a writers guild union strike or something. But there was a show called Jericho. Did y'all ever see that
I've
series?
heard of it.
Man, it's on Netflix.
Read the story of it.
Anyway, yeah, it's got a famous story about it. But anyway, it's some people get a hold of all the nukes and they let a few off, and then America splits into like 3 different nations, and they're all trying to carve out a new society. You know, it's kind of
dystopian kind of thing.
Yeah,
okay.
And so that's what it is. But it was like the start of the show. You know, they're all having to barter and this one town in Kansas has this huge salt mine, and everybody wants to control that little portion of Kansas because salt preserves food, and nobody has refrigeration anymore and all that. So salt has really gone up in demand, and so it's funny because this town Jericho is where the salt mine is, and just how they have to fight off to keep their salt mine. It's a crazy thing.
Talking about people getting back to like the base level, you know, very feral kind of. Did you see that story? I don't want us to take us off track, but I'm going to. That story in Michigan where about the guy who, the kid, it was a black kid, came to his house because he missed his school bus. He missed the bus to school, and he knocked on the dude's door, and there's video of it from the time the kid walks up to the house to the time he runs away. The kid walks up, knocks on the door, and you can see they're obviously back and forth, but he's asking for directions to get to the school because he doesn't know where the school's at. The video ends with the man stepping outside as the kid's running away, taking aim at him and shooting at the kid. You saw he got charged with assault, the intent to commit murder.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Because you can watch in the video, there's nothing like the kid's not trying to break into the house. You can see him walk up with his backpack on, knock on the dude's door, take a couple steps back like you normally would after you knock on somebody's door, and wait for the guy to come to the door. You can see that the guy comes to the door and they're talking, right? And the kid's not getting like flailing his arms or being like threatening or anything.
Bowing up or anything?
Yeah, bowing up, nothing like that. And I'm thinking maybe the kid might have said something, or the guy answered the door all like, "Hey, get away from my house!" And he's
maybe he only had one bar on his phone.
Maybe.
I only had one
but
bar.
it ended with the guy shooting at the kid.
Crazy.
And I was just like, that's crazy. But that guy right there, in a hurricane situation, is going to be the
or
one.
A tornado comes in and wipes everything out.
You're going to want to know that there's a crazy dude like that, because he's the one that's going to be like shooting at people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah.
You got shot at, didn't you?
We didn't get shot at. We saw groups of people running around with guns.
Okay.
And then we moved up north. I had a friend that was polite enough to offer us to stay at his mom and dad's antebellum home, which is awesome because those old antebellum homes, you know, they always have that really long driveway. It's like half a mile, 3/4 of a mile long.
Right, so you got away from people?
Yep, got away from people, and there's a big gate there, and so we were stationed at the gate with guns. So the gate was closed, and we just sat behind the gate with a couple guns and keep moving.
The mental shift in that is just huge. You know, and I guess as the days go on, you slowly kind of come back out of this as you know, society kind of comes back to the senses. You start getting a little more produce getting shipped in. You get some power shipped in. Your brain starts kind of clicking out of that survival mode back into, hey, let's go to Walmart for some oranges mode.
And it's crazy how quick it changed. In Hattiesburg, Mississippi, the National Guard came down. They brought supplies of water and ice. Don't know if it's true, but while I was down there, I heard that a guy shot his sister over a bag of ice. But I mean, imagine if you're not prepared, you have no water, no bottled water, no water to drink, nothing to drink, there's no running water, you can't get water, and somebody shows up with water and you have to fight to get the water. What would you do, right? Makes me think about Mad Max. Mad Max is a bad boy, but he's just by himself. In a critical situation like that, you want to have friends. You want to have people that you're able to rely on, lean on, and also that like give you some support, because there's strength in numbers.
Yeah, there is. But if you live out in the country and you have your own well,
oh, you're fine. I mean, yeah.
And that's the big difference. You know, you're saying you want to pack lightly so you can be agile, you can be mobile. Whereas if you're, you know, in the middle of Texas and you got your own 100-acre farm or whatever,
yeah, why
you're
would
set.
you?
You're set in to be stable
Yeah, you got
secure, hunker down.
Yeah.
It's just, it is nuts. And we all kind of, at least I do, have this mindset. It's never going to be me that's in that life making decision.
And other things like we've had big floods here, but it affected small groups of people. Like and the tornadoes is a tornado if it goes 5 + 10 miles. They never really ever go over 10 miles. So even tornadoes don't tear up huge areas unless they hit a large town right on. Then they can hurt a whole town. But it ain't like Katrina took out a huge portion of the lower, Mississippi, Louisiana.
The Ninth Ward is still destroyed. I mean, you could drive through the Ninth Ward right now and be like, this place is, it's devastated.
Yeah, I was in Baton Rouge and some other little town starts with the B, Biloxi, this spring. And they still had stuff boarded up from Katrina years later. We're talking about, I guess we're
2005 is when Katrina happened.
We're 13 years later, and they're still.
There was a town, I can't remember the name of it, but Katrina did so much damage to it, the town dissolved itself into the next town because it didn't have enough money.
It couldn't recover?
It looked like, just somebody took a broom and just whoosh, right across the county. And just wiped everything away.
And you read about natural disasters from the 1900s, 1800s. Galveston, Corpus Christi got hit, and thousands of people lost their lives because we had no National Registry Service, no radar or Doppler radar or anything that could just predict this stuff. So, 100 years ago, people would have huge snowstorms, ice storms, hurricanes come in, and like Storm Sandy in New Jersey and stuff affected them quite a bit. They didn't even see it coming.
Right, they weren't prepared. Yeah.
So we've had a larger loss of life than even 9/11. Because I remember they were comparing deaths from 9/11, which was a little under 4,000 people, versus the deaths of these hurricanes from back then. And then just, could you imagine? It'd be like a Hollywood movie where you'd be riding your horse or in a wagon on Main Street and you just look up and a wall of water's just coming.
Oh, man. Look at the pictures of like Michael coming in. It is nuts. And you're sitting there like, why are people still hanging around? Like, are you not looking up at all? Yeah. This is crazy.
It's crazy.
But that's me. I don't live on the coast. So if you live on the coast, I guess you get a little bit more used to that.
I think you do get used to it. And it's amazing. They rebuild, and we go right back to the same spot, and then we build things that are really strong, like those fancy, huge hotels. That they're still there.
Yeah.
They might put some glass in them, paint them, and stuff, but overall, those concrete, huge hotels right there on the coast, they've gone through hurricane after hurricane after hurricane.
It's not like you can't live there.
Yeah.
Just because hurricane season happens, it'd be like telling people in Alaska, like, you shouldn't really build way up north because it's so cold up there. Well. And then also talking about like people like not being able to relocate. Some of the people that down in New Orleans, they're impoverished. They don't have maybe they don't have a car or some means of transportation to travel, 200-300 miles. So that also is a consideration to take into fact.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the video from Hurricane Katrina and seeing like people on top of the roofs, those people aren't the wealthiest of people. They're pretty dirt poor. The ones that are in the dome, if you remember, they sandwiched tons and tons of people in the dome. Yeah. And I don't know, there were rumors of rapes and stuff. I don't know how credible that was, but you're sandwiched in there because you just don't have a way to get out. That's also something to think about. Here in Texas, I'm sure there are underprivileged people that if we were like, hey, a hurricane's coming and there's like 15 of them back to back and you need to move away from here, could they do it? I guess if they hitchhiked.
Yeah.
So there's always that aspect to think about too. That's why it's really.
But they took a lot of those low-income, social, economic people and brought them to Texas prior. They brought them to Houston on.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Tons.
I'm just saying,
tons
you're not going to get them all.
You're not going to get them all. But the funny thing is, they were on a news. Might have been Fox News, and we don't know how incredible Fox News is, but but it could be fake news. Who knows? But Houston's burden of absorbing all of New Orleans' poor people, getting them on, because then they became on Texas food stamps and they became on Texas health situations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then they didn't move back.
No.
So now New Orleans is actually wealthier after Katrina, and Houston has gotten poor.
I mean, it makes sense.
So
I
it
never
is
heard it
fun.
before.
Anyway, I was just remember them talking about that, and I remember you'd go into Dallas, and on I-30 there it says Louisianans thank you Texas. You know, they were saying thank. They had a big billboard on the interstate there saying thank you, and I thought that was kind of nice. But it was funny, about how everybody helped out. But then Hurricane Harvey hit 2 years ago in Houston, and it was a pretty intense hurricane. Hit Houston, and it really kind of bounced back.
2 years ago,
or a year ago?
I think it was last year.
Last year.
It's
been a while, but the amount of that was crazy to see people in those boats going in neighborhoods, and it showed like before and after photos. And me and my brother did a podcast about how would you. He said he would just go to his roof and just fish and camp out on top of his roof until he goes. That water's only going to be there for a week or two, and he was right. It was like a week or two later, it was gone. And
yeah, hurricanes are becoming more and more intense as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talking about back in the day when it used to cause more damage, I believe that's true, but I believe that's also correlated to the fact that we didn't have the technology that we do have today to predict this is where it's at, this is where it's going, this is how intense it's going to be. And also,
building codes are a lot stronger too today.
Building codes are a lot stronger, but I think weather, I know it's a hot topic down here, but global climate change definitely is a thing. I mean, temperatures are changing.
Yeah.
The differences and changes out in the ocean waters are directly correlated to how strong a hurricane is because it's pressure buildup. Like Hurricane Katrina was considered one of the most powerful hurricanes, or the second most powerful hurricane, because of pressure. Right? The pressure buildup is what causes the spin and also the accumulation of the water, unless I'm mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, Camille was one of the most destructive that we can remember. If you were living down in Louisiana, they always talked about Camille because that was a Cat 5, and it caused tons of damage, but that was back in 1973, I think. And Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005, and in that 2005 Atlantic hurricane season, we had 3 major hurricanes that happened just in that season. This year, I mean, you talk about Harvey last year, but this year we have Michael, which is also, I believe it
4.
hit. Yeah, 4. I mean, and that's pretty, that's pretty intense. So,
yeah,
I think looking forward, you're only going to see more and more. So, it's due diligence to get yourself prepared.
And
you hear that, real estate agents off the East Coast?
Yeah, that and since the 70s to now, America is 3 times the population.
Yeah.
So nobody ever thinks about that. Like we've gone from less than 100 million people to over 300 million people in America, and so that's just a lot more people living on the coast. So there's going to be more people dying, I would think.
A thinning has to occur.
Yeah.
At least you didn't say the word purge. Gosh, I hate that.
You don't like purge? It's the dumbest thing ever.
If you have to get one thing for the final question, if you have to get one thing from your house and you got to leave immediately, and it can't be a family member, like, I got to get my wife or something.
Okay, can't be
an object. What do you grab?
So it's me, my family, and then that's it. We don't have anything else. We're just leaving the house. And we obviously have a pair of clothes on.
Yeah.
Nothing else in our hands. The one thing that we grab.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest jug of water that I can carry. You can survive 7 days without food. You're not going to make it that long without water.
The car keys.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I mean, there's so many. I understand the question, but there's so many variables. Where we live, where we going. Is there water there? Are we hiking for the next 3 days? I might be grabbing my gun.
Yeah.
And we can take Ruben's jug of water maybe from him.
Yeah. I'm drinking it as you're
Gun beats water. Gun beats water.
Yeah. I don't know.
You're going to have to from the holes that you shoot at me.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? What'd you pick?
Oh, man. I was gonna say my phone. I could record everything. It's got a camera. You know, it's got a compass.
Call, compass.
Yeah.
It's it can tell you temperature. Of course, you might not have service or whatever, but it still does a lot of that. It can tell you temperatures, compass. You do your last will and testament when you don't bring your water. You're like, I'm done here. I'll leave my 22 to so and so or whatever.
Cell service went down for me
Mm-hmm.
periodically, and gas stations were closed.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Good point.
One thing is to fill up your car before a disaster.
Yeah.
Have it full.
Also, during my hurricane, we couldn't leave. If you didn't have gas for your chainsaws, the next day after Katrina, the sound that I heard most was chainsaws.
Yeah.
Were people dressed like in masks and running around with chainsaws, or just cutting trees up?
No, just what's funny about
they were out of ammunition with their guns, so the next day was chainsaw.
about Hurricane Michael?
What?
I saw. I was told a meme. It was on the internet. It happened October 13th. It was like October 13th, Hurricane Michael. Well played, Mother Nature, because Michael.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
Yep. Well, it's good to be prepared. The Boy Scout motto, and also to stock up, have water, canned goods.
Do the Boy Scouts
Ammunition.
exist anymore?
I don't know. They're
I
called.
think it's just Scouts now, eh?
Yeah, I think it's called Wimpy Scouts.
I think some chapters.
What did you say?
It's just called Wimpy Scouts.
Wimpy Scouts. Wimpy Scouts.
I think it's just called Scouts now, eh?
Is it really?
I think so.
I think that's right. There's
Yeah.
no Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts anymore.
Yeah,
Oh, wait. I think it's Boy Scouts or Scouts, and I think there's still Girl Scouts, right?
Yeah, because they won't. I find it very sexist that Girl Scouts don't let boys in.
Let the guys let the girls in.
I didn't mean to.
And when I was in high
I just
school,
wanted to make
the number one
correction.
thing I wanted to do was go on a Girl Scout camping trip.
Just to help out, huh?
It's just to help out, show them my knot skills.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we need to do that one next.
Yeah.
The Boy Scouts. Is it still the Boy Scouts?
Is it still the Boy Scouts?
Or is it just the Scouts?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm throwing my ballot into it's called Scouts now, but I could be wrong.
So I think
they know.
I think each chapter can
Determine?
That's
determine.
what I've read. It's like so.
I don't know if they're called chapters or not, but
I think they're called dens or
Dens,
packs
okay.
or whatever. They can decide how they want to
Do
be.
whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the Satanist motto. It's one of their commandments. Do whatever you will, as long
If it
as you
feels
don't-
right,
As long as you don't hurt anybody, do whatever you want.
follow your heart.
follow your heart. Yep.
Horrible advice.
Well, with that, come back with some good tidbits of wisdom, or not, at the barbershop next week. Thanks, Ruben, for being on.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
It's
It's always
fun.
a pleasure. I always
Sharing
have a
your
great
story of Katrina and all that.
time. I feel grizzled just talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Feel more manly.
And here's to you always having full bars on your phone.
Yep. Yeah, full service.